Good morning. So yesterday we discussed the Shulchan Aruch, which talked about three stages in the custom, the custom, I guess, the requirement to move the table away in order to invoke curiosity from children prior to uh, reciting the Haggadah really. Yeah, you can close the door, thank you. Yep. So after you set yourself up for the Seder, basically, and you've made Kiddush, you had your first dipping, which comes along with washing, or Karpas. You broke your middle matzah because you're about to recite the Haggadah and you want to have that broken matzah there. Then, before you even start, the Seder plate is moved away, right? The Seder plate is moved away. So, at which point do we have it? We have it at after you broke the middle matzah. Then you say the LACHMA. When you say the LACHMA, yeah, you can go ahead. When you say the LACHMA, I'm sorry, you see the LACHMA, the matzah is still there.
What's LACHMA? Not that means.
Sorry, LACHMA. LACHMA is the wrong book. Oh, here it is. LACHMA is that introductory paragraph which says this is the blood of affliction that our forefathers ate. You've broken the middle matzah, so you're describing it as poor man's bread. So you say this is the bread of affliction.
It has to be there.
So the matzah is there. In fact, some people lift it up, right? The instruction Haggadah officially is to pick up the matzah at that time, or at least put your hands on it. As our custom is, or to uncover it. And then after that, the kaira is moved away, cup is filled up. Now the kid's curious because A, you moved away the cup. B, you moved away the plate. You haven't eaten yet. B, you're filling up the cup when you haven't. You haven't eaten yet. You're already filling up a second cup, but you're drinking it right now. At this point, the kid reads the Manashtana while the plate is away.
Plate or the table?
The table / plate is away, which we'll explain in a minute, yeah. And then, before you read the Haggadah, the plate comes back. Because again, the point is you have to recite the Haggadah over the presence of the matzah, which is why you had it there to begin with. So you have to bring it back. So you only move it away till such time that the kid asks questions. Once he asks questions, i.e. the Manashtana has been recited, the plate comes back. Right? Because you got the questions, you got the point done.
Yeah.
Now you need the matzah there so you can recite the Haggadah over the matzah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so firstly, by divine providence, okay, we'll go to that later if we have time. I'll get to that soon. But before we get to, let's look now at page Lamed Vav. So it's the third page on this little packet of pages here from the Rebbe's Haggadah, where there it says, where there it talks about the halachmanya, this paragraph that says this is the bread of affliction, that introductory paragraph, which is said before you move the plate away, right? Which we learned about in our Shulchan Aruch already, right? After you dip, after you break the middle matzah because you want to have the presence of the broken matzah, now you describe this is the bread of affliction that our forefathers ate in Egypt. All those are hungry, let them come and eat. All those who want to join the Pesach, let them come and join. This year we're here, next year we're in Israel. This year we're slaves, next year we're free men. That's the translation of the paragraph. So this is the Rebbe's commentary on that. So let's see. It was bottom right, Magid, right? This begins the step Magid, the 15 steps. Yeah. Then it says, Umagbia kaira. You're supposed to raise up the plate. Okay. So it gives a source, Rosh Torah Shulchan Aruch. I don't think we mentioned in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Did we mention Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch supposed to lift up the plate when you say Lachma Halachmanya? I don't remember
I
that.
believe we mentioned it yesterday.
No, we do. Yeah, we do. Sorry, the Alter Rebbe says it. Afterwards, the custom is to raise the plate and say Halachmanya. Until Manashtana, right? So you raise the plate, say Halachmanya, put it down, move it aside. Kids are curious, say questions.
And then bring it back.
And then bring it back once the kids are done. So you can recite Haggadah in the presence of the matzah.
Along with the harosis.
That's right. So the source, the parentheses, is the Rosh at the end of Psachim, Torah Shulchan Aruch. Then the Rebbe says in the parentheses here. You see it there, the second line. Aval bat. Mashakos, this is what I really want to look at, want to show you. Mashakos of Psachim Kuf Tez Vav Beis. That which the Gemara says in Psachim, page 115b, where it says to move the plate away, that's not referring to this of raising the matzah when you say Halachmanya. That's speaking of the moving of the plate that we do after the Halachmanya. And this is different to that which is written in a book called Shara Koilo. Sorry, excuse me. You don't have a copy here of the Shara Koilo. I should have prepared that. The Shara Koilo is a book written by the Rebbe's great-great-grandfather, who's also my great-great-great-great, something, I'm not sure how many greats, grandfather, Rabbi Avram David Levut. We had the occasion to speak about him once before. His son, Menashe Levut, his youngest son, was the earliest Chabad Hasidim here in Montreal. Spoke about him once, did a little biography on him. So he wrote a book called Shara Koilo. I'm pulling it up in front of me right now on my page. And it's essentially the first thorough commentary on the Alter Rebbe Siddur. Now, the Alter Rebbe Siddur, of course, includes the Haggadah, right? That's the Rebbe's commentary on the Haggadah of the Alter Rebbe. So in Shara Koilo, it would appear that he writes that the raising of the Haggadah, I actually want to pull it up. It seems like
so he did a similar thing as the Rebbe did. He made a
commentary on the entire Siddur. The Rebbe's is commentary just on the Haggadah.
Oh, the entire Siddur. Okay.
Which includes Haggadah, right?
Right.
And now, it's going to be earlier, I think. Sure. I don't want to spend too much time looking at this. Give me 2 minutes, we'll look up the index. Hilchos Pesach, okay.
You had mentioned it once before. In my contact.
We spoke about it before, yeah. Okay, Kuf Chav Gimel.
Footnote in some.
We spoke about him about the Alkane. Our whole discussion on the Alkane. We spoke about him there. Remember that? He was the one that put Alkane in bold.
Remember there was a footnote somewhere that you had cited. It was you mentioned that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, 2 more minutes, almost got it. Wait, why is this going to there? Okay, Kuf Gimel, said it was. The page Kuf Gimel?
Why it was bold.
Why that's correct. Why there? That's it. Why it was bold. That's correct. Why the Alkane was bold. That was a Shara Koilo. That's right. That was the whole discussion there. Okay, I'm almost there. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's right. Okay, right there. Okay. So wait, this doesn't put the source here. Sorry. Take a little longer. No, put the source here. Okay. So let's see. Now we have it. It says a Shara Koilo. Actually, doesn't even say much. He just comments on the fact that Alter Rebbe says to raise the Haggadah, put the source in the parentheses like
raise the plate, you mean?
Raise the plate, and he put the source he puts the source in parentheses. Psachim Kuf Tez Vav Beis, Psachim 115b. Tosfos the Barmaskal Lama Orkir. The Tosfos which says, why do you move the plate away? And there Tosfos explained to raise curiosity, and through that he asked the other questions.
Right.
So implying the Shar Koil is saying that when it says in the Shulchan Aruch to move the plate away,
To raise curiosity.
it's talking about when you raise the plate as you say the lachmanya. And they're saying no, you're mixing it up.
Mhm.
Two different things. The raising the plate as you say lachmanya is just because you're saying this is the bread of affliction. So therefore you should raise the plate up to say this is the bread. And moving the plate away, that comes after you finish the lachmanya to raise curiosity, which is followed by the actual milestone. Not the first time I've seen where the Rebbe will quote his great-grandfather and disagree. Not the first time I've seen it. Other times, of course, the Rebbe doesn't. He just quotes and explains, or quotes it as a source outright. But it's not the first time we've seen the Rebbe quotes his great-grandfather and disagrees. Okay, finally, the Beis Harav in the house of the Chabad Rebbe's, Ein Magbi Nakaya, the custom is not to raise the plate at all. Rak Regal and Mitzvah Sarpah, or matzahs, the matzahs are slightly uncovered. To say this is the bread of affliction, we uncover it. Whereas others have the custom to raise it up. Others raise it up and walk around the table, walk around the room. You know, sorry.
Yeah, we do that in the party.
Yeah. So that's all around this.
That's
Okay.
that ritual is the raising of the.
That's right. This is the
It's not the
raising,
curiosity.
not the curiosity, which comes
I
later.
can see how that could be
Confused.
confusing.
That's what the Rebbe's great-grandfather does.
Because that also looks a little bit unordinary.
Yeah. Okay.
I just had sorry.
Yeah.
I asked a question.
Actually, it's unordinary if you don't know the translation.
Right. Okay.
If you know the translation, this is the bread of affliction. It's not unordinary. You're picking it up and you're saying this is the bread of affliction. Okay, you're talking about bread.
Yeah. So why would that be incorrectly described in the?
Rebbe's great-grandfather, what was he
Yeah.
thinking? I don't know.
Okay. Now there's also a part. My question is the part in Haggadah where we have to point to the. We point to the.
That comes much later. We'll get to that.
That's not related to this.
No, that's at the end of the Haseder, where we talk about the meaning of each of those three things, and we point at them.
to the
Matzah, maror, yeah, that comes later. Okay, yeah.
Very good.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about is 2 paragraphs later, on the right-hand side, which says, Hey Lachma. So you'll remember, you might remember we discussed in the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe discussed, whether you say this is the bread of affliction, or you say like this. Right?
Yes, I remember that.
Because
but we wanted to remember.
You want to remember the bread that was.
Like you're in the moment.
Right. So we commented there. Well, actually, in the footnote here, they cited to the Rebbe, which comments that the footnote of this packet here, that in the language of the Alter Rebbe, which was, here's the Alter Rebbe's language. There are those who are careful to say ke lachmanya or ha-ke, namely, this is like the bread, or like this is the bread, because it is not appropriate to say halachmanya diachalavasana. It's not appropriate to say this is the bread that our ancestor ate, because this is not the actual bread our ancestors ate. Therefore, even though the wording in the texts is halachma, this is the bread, one who says ke halachma is not remiss. So language is not like, oh, amend the text. Instead of saying this is the bread, say like this is the bread. He says, if you switch it, it's okay. Almost as if wink, wink, I would rather you say, this is the bread. And indeed, in the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah, his Siddur, it does say, without the kaf kehei, it just says, this is the bread. Yes, let's see the Rebbe's comment on that.
That's his subtle way of saying, I'd rather you do it this way.
That's right. He said, if you say kehei,
is doing it that way.
Yeah, but like this, the Haggadahs say, hey, but because it's inappropriate and you decide to change the text of the Haggadah in front of you and add the ke, it's okay. Today's Haggadahs, many, if not most, say ke already. But it seems like Haggadahs in those days actually didn't say ke.
Ke means
like. It didn't actually say that. It's a prefix, the chaf.
Came later.
It came later in the prince. So it seems like the prince in the Alter Rebbe's time did not say ke, but he's writing in his code, if you decide to add ke, it's okay because it actually makes sense to say ke. Instead of saying outright, please amend the text to the word ke. Right?
But also, though.
Follow?
Yeah, I follow. In support of the argument of supporting the idea of not saying like, you're retelling the story.
You want to be present.
You're retelling the story, so you're retelling it in the present.
Yeah.
Tense.
You want to say this is because this is what you're experiencing, 100%. Okay, so let's see there was comment there. which is the third paragraph on the right, which says Hey Lachma.
Mhm.
Kain hu b'siddur of Amram Goin. This is how it appears in the Siddur of Rav Amram Goin. Rav Amram Goin lives in 900s in Babylonia, post-Talmudic era, part of the Gaonim.
Mhm.
So this is the beginning of, we spoke about this in our history class.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the responsa era, in which Jews slowly start to disperse, but the center of Torah gravity is still in Babylonia. And as the center of the Torah world, they encouraged other communities to send their questions in, and they would respond in letters. And these questions tell you a lot about history, of course. It tells you about the communities that are writing the questions. It tells you about Babylonia. And a lot of times, as I mentioned, when we learned the class, these questions would come along with a donation, right, to support Torah in the central Torah world, which is Babylonia. And one of these major responses is the first siddur. A community sends a question to the Gaonim, asking, please can you tell us how to pray? If I'm not mistaken, the nature of the question was, how do you cover 100 blessings every day? And if I'm not mistaken, that was the nature of the question. Anyway, it prompted them to write an entire siddur and giving a whole siddur of how to do it, right? And that's like the first manuscript of a formalized siddur. Before that, there's the formulation of the Mishnah and the Gemara, which says, here are the subjects you should cover. Here's the structure of the blessings.
Kind of like the template.
The template, right. So unless you were, and there were customs that emerged in different communities. And for the most part, these customs were preserved by the leader of the congregation. And you came to shul, you followed the leader. There's no print anyway. But if you're far out there, that could have been lost. So they write to the central authority, please give us a guideline. And they sent them a manuscript, a letter. So that became the first manuscript siddur. There was two then. There's Avram Goyen and one of the other Goyen did a similar thing. Anyway, so in Avram Goyen, one of these earlier texts, it doesn't say Ke, it just says Hey Lachma. Likewise, Yoitzer l'Shabbos Agadol, Rabbi Yosef Toiv Elm. Rabbi Yosef Toiv Elm, if my memory serves me correctly, is a European Rishon. Look it up since you're asking, since we're doing this. Where is it? I lost my place. Let me see if I got it right. So he was a scholar of I'm going to say the 11th century in Germany, or 12th century. He wrote a poem, halachic poem.
Sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, it does. Yep. So he's
Poem.
French. Yeah, he's a French scholar who lived, let's see what years, in the 11th century. Ooh, that was pretty good. In the French, in the French regions, 11th century. And he wrote a halachic poem, which it's essentially a poem written for the, right, Shabbos Agadol, the Shabbos before Pesach is called the Great Shabbos. And one of the reasons is because the rabbi is obligated to give a big speech, a big sermon detailing the halachas of Pesach.
So he recites the poem.
That's right. So he wrote a poem which goes to the halachas of Pesach.
But like in a sing-song rhyme,
kind of right. Yeah, it's written in prose basically, as opposed to it's written in verse rather than in prose. Anyway,
it's funny.
Yeah, it's
more like amusing.
It's amusing, yes, it is. Anyway, so there too, it says Hey Lachma rather than Ke. And this is Toisus the Barmaskal Lama Psachim Kuftes Beis, and the Rebbe tells us that it's brought in the Toisus on our Gemara.
So it's using the halakhic poem as a proof text, right?
Well, yeah, because it's one of the early sources for the text of the Seder night. Likewise, this is the text as it appears in Machzer Vitri. Machzer Vitri, we had the occasion to speak about him as well. The Machzer Vitri is also a siddur written by Rashi's student, Shmuel Vitri, who became a mechutin with Rashi. I think his son married into Rashi's family. He's part of the school of the Tosafists, or at the house of Rashi. And in this siddur called Machzer Vitri, he details Rashi's customs and practices. And there too, it appears with a Hey Lachman without the Ke. Likewise, this is how it appears in Shibbolei Haleket Siman Ches, Shibale Aleket, again, if I'm not mistaken, is an Italian author in a little bit later than these. So I'm going to go with the, move from memory here. I'm going to go with the 13th century.
You're lost here. You could just refer to the Giant
series. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Yeah, he's written by the doctor in Italia. Yeah, his name is Avram Arefa, Sitzki ben Avram Arefa, in the 13th century. What did I say? 12th.
Yeah.
No, I said 13th. Did I say 13th or 12th? I don't know what I said. But yeah, it's Italian. He's an Italian scholar. So he too has the Hey Lachmanya. And as well, finally, Rambam, Soif Hilchas Chametz and Matzah, in Rambam, the famous Rambam, in the laws of, end of the laws of Chametz and Matzah, which, by the way, I want to mention this earlier. By Divine Providence, yesterday's Rambam of 3 chapters a day included the last chapter of the laws of Chametz and Matzah, which the last chapter includes the program for the night of the Seder and the text of the Haggadah. So there too, it's Helach minded out the kiss. So it's by Divine Providence we're talking about this. And likewise, Abudraham, not mistaken, is a Spanish scholar, actually even earlier generation. We know what the 11th or 12th century. I'm not mistaken, is Spanish. I'm doing a little flexing here. Hope you don't mind. Abudraham, yeah, Spanish of the 14th century, a little later. Okay, my mistake. I put them earlier. Okay, all these texts, all these sources have ha-lachma anya without the ka. Okay, so that was basically substantiating this version. So if this is the substantiated version by all these early texts, even though the Alter Rebbe writes, if you add ka, it's okay. Yes?
Because technically that's correct.
Technically it's correct, it's not the right thing.
But
So then,
spiritually,
oh, so then the question becomes, before we get to spiritual, on the pshat level, why does it say hey? Hey, on the basic reading level, says the Rebbe, even though this is not the actual bread, it's only symbolic of that bread, or it's only a sampling of what that bread would have been like. Lishna de krahu. Nonetheless, we're using the language of the verse. This is often the case in literary prayers, that we use the language of a verse, even if it doesn't fit perfectly. Because if the verse uses that language, we also use that language. Which verse is this? This verse is a verse. It's Exodus 16, verse 32, which I pulled up on my page here. And the verse reads like this. Moses said, "This is the thing that the Lord commanded. Let one omerful of it," referring to the manna, "be preserved for your generations, in order that they see the bread that I fed you in the desert when I took you out of the land of Egypt."
that's right.
Hold on a second. The bread that God fed you is not the bread in that saving. It's a sample. The other bread is the bread I fed you, because the bread I fed you, you already ate. So because the verse uses this idea that you should see the bread I fed you, even though it's not the actual bread. Likewise here with the matzah. What's your counter argument to that? Why is that different than here? So let's see. The source of this idea comes from the Magen Avraham, which is the source of the Alter Rebbe. Okay. Now the Magen Avraham.
Follow that text in front of you. Yeah.
Right. Well, no, think of the logic. God says, collect one portion full of the Omer and hide it away for generations so that you can see the bread that I fed you. So the verse doesn't say that you should see like the bread that I fed you.
Oh yeah, right. It's just
the bread that I fed you. So therefore, use that same language here when you talk about the matzah, the bread that you ate in Egypt.
It's still past tense. That's a past tense that I fed you.
Yes, but it's the bread, not like the bread.
Okay, that's true.
So you should see the bread that I fed you. So this comes from the Magen Avraham, which is sort.
Like you said, the bread that he fed us has already been eaten.
That's right. Okay. That's right.
Okay, so but why do you ask? Why is this?
Okay, let's see. So here's the Magen Avraham. This is the source. This is the source of this idea of relying on this verse, and where the Alter Rebbe got the idea from. And the language of the Alter Rebbe, which says, if you decide to go to kir, you haven't lost out.
And you're saying this may.
The source is the Magen Avraham. There are sites to the Magen Avraham, and this is the source.
Okay.
I'm reading it for you.
So you're reading it.
The verse reads like this. The Magen Avraham says, The text is Hey Lachmanya. And this is the language of the verse, which says to put away a portion of manna, so the generations will see the bread that I fed you.
Okay.
Says the Magen Avraham. Don't mess up with the language and add ke. Don't do that. Why would you do that? Because you don't want to say this is the bread because it's not the actual bread.
You don't want to mess up the language.
That's why I'm bringing you a proof from a verse.
Okay.
Where there it says, so your generations shall see the bread, even though the one that they're looking at is not the actual bread that they ate, because the one that they actually ate, they already ate.
Right.
It's only a sample. Here too, the bread's a sample, and yet you say this is. What continues in Magen Avraham? This is not a perfect proof. Why? Because there, in the case of the manna, they actually took from the same manna. The manna that they hid is where they get that manna from. From the actual manna that you ate. Okay, it's not the one you ate, because the one you ate is already ingested, but it's from that. It's from there. It's from right there. Which one's a stretch? Which way?
This one is saying that it's almost similar because it's from the same source.
It's literally the bread you ate.
Well, it's not the bread you ate. It's the bread like the bread you ate.
No, it's from the
actual bread you ate.
It's from the bread you ate. Whereas the matzah is something I made last week. The manna that's hidden in the manna that's put away wasn't made last week. I took it from them. Right? So it's not exactly the same. Anyway, the point is you can go both ways, which is what he says. And that's why he concludes and says, therefore, if you say ke, you didn't lose out so much. Because really you should follow the verse. If you said ke, you didn't lose out because the verse is not perfect like ours.
There's a question,
that's the backstory.
There's a question involved, so you can be lenient.
Exactly. And therefore you didn't lose out if you don't say, hey, if you don't go with the exact language of the verse.
Topic, right?
Exactly. If you didn't go with the exact language of the verse, you didn't lose out because the verse isn't perfect anyway.
Right.
Isn't a perfect match. That's the sources. Okay, so I want to conclude with, we had some homework yesterday. That were clear? So I want to conclude with some homework we had yesterday, which was moving the plate away. So I mentioned
about the other different reasons why that's
right. The Rebbe said yesterday three stages in this custom. Stage one is temple time, Talmud times, they move the actual table away. Then in the post-Talmud time, sometime in Europe, right, we have from the school of Tosfos, the table's too big, they move the plate away. And we learned in the Alter Rebbe that the moving the plate away is not in replacement of the fact that you can't move the table. But that is the moving of the table, because the point of moving the table was for the bread on it.
Right, it wasn't
about the table per se. It was about the food on the table. And if we're moving the plate away, it's exactly the same thing. And then the Alter Rebbe concluded, today, since the Kins know,
you don't have to do it.
You don't even have to do it at all. The source for this idea that you don't have to do it at all because they know already is again from the Magen Avraham. From this Magen Avraham. Now, as we know, in the Siddur, in the Haggadah, the Alter Rebbe does say to move it away. And Chabad custom
said because of the decree was given, so you should
so I was saying because the decree was given, respectfully keep
the decree.
Correct. And he moved it away slightly. Now again, the source for this idea of not doing it at all comes from the Magen Avraham, which means in the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe followed the Magen Avraham and said, don't do the custom. In the Siddur, he went back, reverted to ignoring the Magen Avraham and saying, yes, move it away. This could be an example of one of these cases. The Alter Rebbe actually regretted. The Alter Rebbe said that he regretted relying too heavily on the Magen Avraham in the Shulchan Aruch. And he actually wrote a second version of the Shulchan Aruch, which we don't have because it's completely burnt up, except for a few passages.
Wait, so the
Alter Rebbe wrote his
Magen Avraham said, don't move it?
Because the custom is have no use anymore. Because the kids know.
And his Siddur, he said, yeah.
But the Alter Rebbe said in his Siddur,
he regrets what he wrote in the
Shulchan Aruch. It's not uncommon that the Siddur is a bit different than the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah, no, I know that.
We know that. But moreover, here, because it's the Magen Avraham, I'm suggesting, because the Alter Rebbe said that he regretted that in the first. The Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch twice.
Right.
We only have the first version. The second version is burnt up. He wrote that one of the reasons he's doing it again is because he felt like he relied too heavily on the Magen Avraham. This could be one of those examples. And the Magen Avraham says to banish the custom, or it's a useless custom, no reason to do it. And the Siddur Alter, and the Shulchan Aruch went with that, but the Siddur Alter said, no, do the custom. Right? In the Chabad custom is to move it away slightly. And indeed, this Magen Avraham is controversial. This Magen Avraham, which says that the kids know the answers and therefore no reason to move it away, is questioned by the Aliyah Rabbah, by the Pri Megadim, like it's really questioned, it's challenged.
Mhm.
Yeah, where's that? Pri Megadim's on this page. It's challenged, and it's a controversial one, and many disagree with it. So now, as for the halacha of what to do, I saw different sources, and many Haggadah say to indeed do it, and the Aruch HaShulchan writes to actually take the plate and move it to the other side of the table, and the Mishnah Berurah also cites challenges the Magen Avraham, meaning the Mishnah Berurah maintains that you should do the custom, as does the Aruch HaShulchan, as does others.
Well, it's a big constituency.
To say to maintain the custom. Yeah, the Chok Yaakov interestingly says that you just, because the language of the Shulchan Aruch is, you should command them to move the table away. You should command them to move the plate away and put it at the end of the table. So the Chok Yaakov says you can command them, but they don't have to listen. You just tell them, hey, move it away. But if nobody does it, leave the plate where it is. That's the Chok Yaakov said, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I saw a few sources like that as well. So that's as far as that goes. Okay, I think that covers that. There's anything else I want to cover from LACHMA? The rest of the Rebbe's commentary on the LACHMA gets to the actual text of the LACHMA, why it's in Aramaic, why certain parts in Hebrew, why is it translated, why it's not translated. That's not really relevant to our subject. So we're not going to look at that today. And God willing, tomorrow we're going to go back to the Shulchan Aruch to discuss the making of the bracha over the matzah, because that was connected to breaking the matzah, right? Which we learned already. We learned about breaking the matzah in the Shulchan Aruch, because you have to have the broken matzah as you recite the Haggadah. And we're going to go to the Alter Shulchan Aruch, which describes making the bracha on matzah, which is again linked to the breaking of the matzah, how you properly make the bracha. We're going to get to that, and then we'll go to the Rebbe's Haggadah about breaking the matzah as well as eating the matzah as well. And something interesting that I've noticed, actually, just if you have 2 minutes, okay, that's as far as the subject about today goes. Learning Rambam yesterday, I noticed something that addresses a question we had when we learned Korach. So we asked about Korach. So according to Rambam, Hillel's Korach only had matzah and maror, not Pesach in it. Right? So which is why Rambam's in a little different thinking here. But if you're of the position, like the majority opinion, that in the sandwich he actually had the Pesach, we asked, why was it eaten at the end of the Seder?
The whole thing.
The whole thing would have been eaten at the end of the Seder, because Pesach has to be the last thing. And the Mordechai asks that question. The question is not mine, it's a question that predates it. Now Rambam says, again, Rambam is not in the position that Korach is with the maror, with the Pesach. Rambam is in the position that Korach is only matzah and maror, even in temple times. But Rambam says like this: here's how you do your Seder. Temple times, you have your matzah and maror either together or separate. He actually says it's optional.
He followed the sages.
He says optional.
Optional, either way.
So he learns the even to mean you can do either way, right? Because the Gemara said the word even. Either way, choose either together or separate. And he says which bracha to make if you're doing together or separate. Then he says eat something of your Pesach offering. Make a bracha of the Pesach and eat something of your Pesach. Sorry, eat something of your Chagiga. Look at the actual wording because this will be helpful. Sorry, give me a second. So eat your Pesach, eat your matzah and maror in either together or separate, as you wish, he says. Then he says, eat the Chagiga offering, right? There's the Chagiga offering.
Yeah.
Right?
You have to fill yourself up, basically.
1 second. Yeah. Then eat a little bit. Eat from your Chagiga offering. Then make a bracha on your Pesach offering and eat of your Pesach offering. And then go eat your meal and enjoy. Eat eat your meal, enjoy. Then at the end of your meal, eat at least the kazayas of your Pesach offering. That should be your last thing. So we can apply that to the sandwich also, where you would start at the beginning and then eat at the end. Although it's very questionable to do that. I don't know if it would work for it.
He's eating the Pesach twice. Why didn't he eat it together? With the mar and matzah.
So he's not of the opinion it's part of the sandwich. He's of the opinion that the sandwich.
But for other reasons, I thought maybe perhaps because you
so
have to eat the Pesach.
I actually think
at
it's
the very end, but eating it before and after, then that.
I think it's linked because this is what the Rambam is saying. You have to make a bracha. You can't eat before you do your mitzvahs. Right now,
you mean the festival?
Yes. Just as a rule, you can't eat before you do mitzvahs. The first thing is the mitzvahs. So eat his Pesach. But the Rambam didn't say to eat a kazayas then.
No.
He says eat of your Pesach. When it comes to the end, he says eat at least a kazayas.
Okay, so you're saying they're linked because
it's similar to their Alter Rebbe's position. And if you remember this, Alter Rebbe said that if a person only has marar and he has to dip twice, so he should eat less than the kazayas at karpas.
You don't want to. You need the after bracha for after
right.
The marar.
So said Alter Rebbe, dip your marar into salt water at the beginning of your meal for karpas. Eat less than a kazayas, but you make the bracha ala chilas marar, and then eat the full marar of a kazayas later. And I'm saying to do a similar thing. Eat a little bit of Pesach at the beginning, make your bracha on that. Thank you Hashem for the mitzvah of Pesach, and then eat the full kazayas at the end. Now, I think this is only true if you don't believe the Pesach is part of the sandwich. If the Pesach is part of the sandwich, you can't do this trick. Because what would you be doing? You'd be eating a full kazayas of matzah, full kazayas of marar,
and
then less than a kazayas of Pesach, and then save a full kazayas of Pesach later without matzah and marar. If you're of the opinion that in order to fulfill your Pesach offering, you have to eat matzah and marar with it, then you'd have to eat matzah and marar again later, which would mean you have to do two sandwiches: one at the beginning, less than the kazayas, and then one at the end with the kazayas.
Maybe that's why you separate
something a little off. That could be why the Rambam separates to begin with. Matzah and marar is one thing sandwich, and Pesach is something else completely entirely. That could be why it does it. But otherwise, I would still maintain, if you're not like Rambam and you're the opinion that Pesach is part of matzah and marar, that the sandwich includes matzah Pesach as well, I would maintain that all that was eaten at the end of the meal. And as for the fact that you need to wash for your meal at the beginning of your meal, and you have to have 2 whole matzahs, so I'm going to say like this: he holds 2 whole matzahs, makes hamoitzi, right? Makes ala chilas matzah, because ala chilas matzah is a mitzvah independent of Pesach. Eats less than a kazayas.
Maybe it's independent of Pesach.
Matzah mitzvah is independent of Pesach. In the Torah separates it. Pesach says the Torah you have to eat it with matzah. But matzah Torah says you eat independently. Right? Marar only says it with Pesach. So here's what I would maintain.
Independently, you eat it by itself. Yeah.
Correct. So he holds 2 matzahs, whole matzahs, and maybe the half one also, because you have to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah with the half.
Yes.
Make a bracha out of this matzah. Make a bracha on moitzi. Make a bracha thanking Hashem for the mitzvah of matzah. Eat matzah, and then at the end of your meal, eat Pesach, matzah, and marar altogether. Because the mitzvah of matzah would
include the Pesach.
Right, because your Pesach requires matzah and marar, but your matzah doesn't require Pesach. So you can do matzah at the beginning of the meal and Pesach matzah marar at the end of the meal. If you were following Hillel in the opinion like Rashbam that the sandwich included Pesach offering. That's what I would argue.
What would be?
But still subject
to before benching.
Yeah, last food you eat has to be the Pesach offering, which would be the matzah and marar together. Another option might be is he ate the sandwich at the beginning, Pesach matzah and marar, fulfilling the entire mitzvah of Pesach, and then at the end had a tiny drop of Pesach that should be the last flavor. But not fulfilling the mitzvah. No, Rambam is saying eat a kazayas at the end.
Oh, right, now, right.
Which means you're fulfilling your mitzvah at the end. Even though you're tasting a little bit at the beginning because you're doing the bracha at the beginning. Like the marar being split in half in Alter Rebbe's position. Right? Again, this is I didn't have enough time to really research this and think about it, but this is if I'm going back into the Haggadah files, I have to open this up again in my head. Maybe something I noticed yesterday.
The dust starts to accumulate very quickly.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, wonderful day and